at the movies with Tim Sika, and he's got a lot to tell us today. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Kim. How are ya?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Busy week.
Let's talk about these movies because Beetlejuice is coming out.
Yeah, Beetlejuice, and happily Michael Keaton return in the
Yeah.
role of that afterlife ghost. Both are back in this 35 years later sequel to Beetlejuice. Tim Burton directs again, and returning cast members Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara are also
Oh,
back. Yeah,
Noni's
yeah,
back. Okay.
yeah. And bottom line with Beetlejuice. Well, at least they didn't call it Beetlejuice 2. I think that's a good thing. And of course, if you want to say, um, what do they say? If you say his name 3 times, he will appear from the dead and mess with you.
Oh,
So
be
they
careful.
wisely opted out from calling it Beetlejuice times 3. Anyway, this I found this to be an okay sequel, I guess. Though it's difficult to say who the movie was made for. I doubt contemporary audiences are going to relate much to it in the same way as fans of 35 years ago, found the original Beetlejuice kind of fun and
Yeah.
goofy. Although the repeat sort of emblematic Tim Burton wackiness, which characterized the first one, might see if people haven't seen the original and they're just seeing that for the first time, that might seem fresh to younger audiences. So who knows? Being a fan of the original, I found the sequel, like I said, it was okay enough, but as a critic, I'm
Yeah.
unable to shy away from the fact that all of this sequel really does is copy everything about the first one that
Oh,
made the first one work, right? So
okay.
as a sequel, I found it to be okay, like I said, but compared to the first one, superfluous. I mean, they really had nowhere else to go with the story, in my opinion, which is why I think it took them 35 years to make a
Hmm.
sequel in the first place. But as a standalone movie, it does have its charms. Keaton, of course, astonishingly recreates his role as though he never left it. And this is
Wow.
35 years later, he plays this bio-exorcist dead guy who in this one, he wants to marry someone from the realm of the living. And that's kind of funny. The great Catherine O'Hara is back as the conceptual artist Delia Dietz, who provides most of the laughs in the film. Every time Katharine Hepburn said something or reacted to somebody else, I burst out laughing. So, and it's a big, loud, characteristically Tim Burton-ish black comedy.
Sure.
It's just more of Beetlejuice. So if you're a Beetlejuice fan, have at it. But go in. I would suggest going in with your expectations managed. I was actually expecting to hate it, especially after having read. I don't know if you read about it, but it got a 3-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival.
Really?
What? Yeah, what the hell was up with that? anyway,
For a
anyway,
movie you said just copied the first one?
yeah, well, yeah. So anyway, I'm recommending it, kind of like, backhandedly with the caveats that I mentioned. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I,
Here,
I was I was
here's
shocked when I found out it got a 3 minute stand. I thought, what did they paper the crowd with people from the studio or something? Anyway, yeah.
here you probably already know this, but Winona Ryder is a Petaluma girl.
That's right. Oh yeah, and I forgot to
Hmm.
talk about Winona. She's
Yeah.
amazing too, and she looks really good. And she looks really good, like like she hasn't had. I don't know if she's had surgery. Women in Hollywood, they
Yeah.
they they have to deal with all that crap. She doesn't. I don't know if she's had any surgery. She doesn't look. And you know how when they have had surgery over and over, how you can really tell. If
Hmm.
she has had surgery, you can't tell. And
No.
she's amazing too, in that she just miraculously steps back into this part,
No.
plays it extremely well, as if no time has passed. It's amazing. She's great in the movie too.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah.
All right. This is fascinating to me. This is
Yeah,
called
me
the
too.
Lover of Men, and it's about Abraham Lincoln. Who knew?
Who Yeah, so the historians and authors appearing in this next movie, Lover of Men, the untold story of Abraham Lincoln, right from the get-go, they tell us that today the big question people are asking about our 16th president, the one US president both political parties agree pretty much was our greatest, is was Abraham Lincoln gay? And I was unaware personally that this was the big question people today were asking about Abraham Lincoln. Was he gay? But there's always been, I've read a lot about Lincoln, and there's always been historical rumblings about certain aspects about Lincoln's life and facts about his life, which over the years were discovered via letters. People who lived at that time wrote about him, letters he himself wrote to close male friends of his. The fact that by choice, this is just one example, he shared beds with men, many men. Anyway, a lot of that always appeared
in his travels or just regularly?
Both. Both. Yeah, there's one I'm going to share here because I don't want to give too much away about this movie.
Okay.
But a lot of that always appeared to me to be kind of gossipy and arguably maybe other people wanting to believe that about Lincoln for their own reasons. But this movie makes both simultaneously a compelling and I think at times somewhat sloppy case, but based on evidence consisting of authentic letters featured in the film, claiming that when you put all of the evidence together, you could draw that conclusion that Lincoln may have been gay or had gay feelings, or what was the term now, the umbrella term used by sex researchers and writers and authors, who study sexuality. The term being used now is queer, that this may have applied to Lincoln. Now, watching this film, I had all kinds of follow-up questions I would have liked to have asked the filmmakers and the researchers who participated, because most of what is asserted here and believed is speculative, and they admit that it's speculative, but where they got me to listen to their arguments was this statement made by one of the historians who said that speculation per se is a mode that historians have to take because they are fighting against the burden of having to prove a point. You know, history is, after all, facts, but facts combined with a lot of speculation, because none of the historians that write about this stuff was lived at the time. You know, they can only write about history as others have written about it. And an example was that they gave was that, most biographies of Lincoln will start with, well, Lincoln couldn't have been gay because he was married and he fathered several children. Right. But what others are saying is, well, these people are saying, look at this evidence, look at these letters, look at how Lincoln expressed this deep love for certain men. Billy Green was one, Elmer Ellsworth was another, who was, by the way, the first Union casualty of the Civil War. Captain David Derrickson, Joshua Speed. Look at how he expressed emotions he never, at least according to the evidence we had, expressed towards any women he knew or even his wife. Now, I'm not saying that this documentary convinced me that Lincoln was gay, but there's some smoke here. I mean, a lot of what is presented in the film is you go, whoa, I mean, what is that? When Mary Todd was away, for example, this guy that Lincoln handpicked to serve in the Civil War, his name was Captain David Derrickson. When Mary Todd was away, this guy slept with the president in the president's bed with him. All documented, by the way, and was even found to be wearing one of the president's nightshirts. I mean, what is that? That's
pretty compelling evidence.
And that's just one example. There are many, many others. And bottom line is, I found the film very interesting, at least from the standpoint of learning certain things I didn't know. The movie purports to be this untold chapter of American history. And just from the standpoint of discussion and consideration, it's interesting. I mean, this is a great movie to show with friends or to watch with friends and then just say, hey, what did we just see? And what do you guys think? This is interesting. It makes you wonder. It makes you reconsider some history maybe and consider how we even look at history and what history actually is. So I recommend it. It's interesting. It gets a little unfocused in trying to tie together other aspects that have influenced the conclusions that the film and the people participating in arrived at. There's these other chapters about the suppression of queer history, and another chapter about the Christian doctrine of slavery, and another one about science and eugenics. So, and I'm going, well, where does this have to do with your argument? But the film is
focus on him, right?
Yeah, but the film is interesting enough to check out. It's just really, A number of times I went, okay, okay, I would love an explanation of what this was about.
So Eric says maybe he was bisexual, like maybe he was
Yeah,
married and also, had both going on.
I think if, yeah, I think that's what I might conclude based on the evidence that they presented in this movie. And they claimed that it was all authentic. It was, none of it was fabricated. They tried to recreate certain scenes in the places that these things supposedly happened. It's interesting. It's just very interesting. And this movie is playing in theaters right now. So if any of what I said sounds interesting, check it out. It's good.
Gordon wants to know if Booth could have been a jilted lover.
Well, I don't know if they go that far.
I don't know if that was the movie. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a good idea for a movie, but well, we do know that Booth was a little like unbalanced, and he hated Lincoln for what he did to the South.
Yeah.
He just yeah. So
I mean, statistically, if you look back at all the men who've been president of the United States, somebody has had to have been, as they say, queer somewhere along the way. So
yeah, there was one, I can't remember. Was it Chester Arthur? Oh, geez, I don't know. There is one president that people pretty much agree on was probably gay.
Okay.
He was single. He was never married. He had men friends. Was it Chester? I don't know who it was. Somebody might want to look that up. But yeah. So well, I don't know about that, but I sure as hell know we're going to have the first female president in November. Yay! Anyway,
let's move to, and this is fascinating. I think we're going to have to seek this one out. But let's move to Seeking Mavis Bacon.
Yeah, Mavis Beacon, actually.
Beacon.
It is.
My
Yeah.
apologies.
I you know what? It's so funny because I did an interview with the filmmakers, and I kept in my mind, I kept saying what you just did, bacon, and I said,
I don't know why I looked at it and saw bacon.
So did I. Every time,
bacon. I don't know why.
Totally.
Yeah.
But every time I looked, I saw bacon. I kept telling myself, I got to remember not to say bacon and say beacon. Anyway, this is another documentary. The documentaries definitely have it this week, and this one, written and directed by Bay Area raised filmmaker Jasmine Jones, comes to theaters today, straight from Sundance, where it had its premiere, and it's about who is probably the most recognizable woman in technology. Kim, do you remember a software that came out in the 90s called Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing?
Yes, I do. I didn't use it, but I've heard the name before.
Yeah, interesting. Yes. Well, a lot of people have. It was a software that sold more than 10 million copies worldwide, making Mavis Beacon this household name for mostly millennials, especially millennials of color. Well, it turned out that Mavis Beacon was not a real person, and the face of the software wasn't a woman called Mavis Beacon, but rather this beautiful Black Haitian woman named Renee L'Esperance, who apparently, after she modeled for the three white guys who created the software, vanished. She disappeared. She went totally off the grid. And this movie, Seeking Mavis Beacon, is just that. It's a search for this woman who was the face of the Mavis Beacon software by these two young women, the director herself, Jasmine Jones, and one of the producers, Olivia Michaela Ross. And their goal was to find this woman and to uncover the truth behind kind of like an unsung hero in Black history. And one of the things I want to say about this movie, the leaps and the bounds the documentary form has taken since Michael Moore kind of redefined, made popular, and made entertaining the genre. The term documentary in some circles still has this pejorative eat your peas perception. Yes, this is a documentary, but it's entertaining as hell. The visuals are very, very sexy. They show you all these computer screens, split screens, laptop visuals, cell phone visuals, and it's just fun to look at, which I thought was really a brilliant choice by the filmmakers. But it's also this multi-layered, superb conversation starter. It's kind of like an investigative detective story too. It's a rumination on identity. And it's a deep dive into how women of color are often still marginalized, exploited, and ultimately cast aside and forgotten. And it really makes you think about technology in a way. I'm always thinking about technology, but this made me kind of think of it. It kind of reboggled my mind because I mean, technology not only is a tool that can be used for great good, but also as a kind of stark reminder, reminding us of the question, well, what's technology actually doing to us? What's the internet really doing to us? Social media, our online footprint. That's really scary, our online footprint. Anybody can find out pretty much anything that we have ever posted. Because as the movie went along, I personally found it to be less about the woman, the image, Mavis Beacon, although that's really what it's about. But for me, it became more about the ever shifting implications of cyber existence, So I loved it for a number of reasons. It's just overall terrific documentary. It's opening in theaters today, Seeking Mavis Beacon. It's fascinating. I mean, God, I'm so digging documentaries these days. There are so many interesting ones being made, ones that are well researched, original, that use the language of film in interesting ways. And this is another example of that. Yeah. Hello.
Sorry,
Hi.
I forgot that I muted myself because I could hear an echo. I was going to say it's a really cool movie poster as well.
Yeah. What does it look like? E.T., doesn't it? To me, it looks like E.T. when they touch the fingers. Yeah. Anyway, so that's that one. That's a good one too. Yeah.
The next one is called The Front Room.
Yes, The Front. Well,
I can tell by the laugh this isn't going to go well.
This is a horror movie.
Okay.
And I'm going to show my hand right away here, but this is such a weird and silly and annoying horror movie in the sense that, in retrospect, when I think about it, it's almost galling in the sense that it was actually made the way it was made. And I'll try to explain what I mean by that, but it was actually made with a kind of confidence that slayed me, because it just expected this great degree of like suspending disbelief. But anyway, it's horror, but to me it played more like a dark psychological campy comedy whose premise is, there's this young couple. The woman is played by Brandy, who's in the poster there, who's pregnant, right? And the man, her husband, is played by Andrew Burnap. His father has just died, right? And the long and the short of it is that the couple agrees to take in, very, very reluctantly, for reasons which I will not spoil, they agree to take in this weird and religiously fanatical stepmother, his stepmother, in what can only be described as insanely performed by an actress named Catherine Hunter. She's a stage actress in a performance that, I don't know, it defies description. I don't know if it's good acting or bad acting, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably choose the latter. She plays this character of this crazy stepmother with this gravelly voice, talking underneath her throat to the extent you can barely understand what the hell she's saying. Her facial tics and her bizarre facial expressions were just irritating and grotesquely histrionic. But considering what the climax of this picture is, I suspect that's what they were going for. Anyway, so this crazy woman moves into the house, right? And I kept wanting to slap both the woman and the man for taking her in the first place. They should have had this woman committed immediately, especially considering the fact that the wife was in an advanced state of pregnancy. She was just having her own issues. Anyway, no surprise that everything goes to hell in the household once this demon stepmother moves in. And the movie is it's a lot of cheap thrills that's kind of gussied up by some of Brandy, the lead actress who's in the poster there. Brandy's got glamour, and she's such a beautiful woman. She's such a fine actress. If it weren't for Brandy, I think I would have bailed on this movie at the halfway mark, but I stuck with it. There's a kind of like, I don't know how I would describe it, like an ersatz Rosemary's Baby vibe about this movie. The music score is actually funny. I think it's intentional. The theremin, I don't know if you know what the theremin is. It's like that instrument that goes, that's what a theremin is. It's got a weird, like, space vibey, kind of creepy feel to it. And there are all these theremin arrangements of the Queen of the Night aria from Mozart's Magic Flute and Saint-Saëns' The Swan and Schubert's Ave Maria that defy comprehension. What I had a believability problem with this movie, Kim, was the premise of this crazy woman moving into this young couple's home. Was that the situation was such that no two sane people would have put up with her for more than 48 hours at most. But it's what made the ending of the film so perversely satisfying. I was actually kind of cheering at the end, and I'm going, oh my God, what does that say about me? Anyway, I guess the best way to describe it is that it is a movie. It's so bad, it's good. And if you're somebody who's ever really, really hated your mother-in-law, this is the movie for you. That's all I want to say.
Okay.
Oh, yike. Anyway, yeah, I found it to be so awful that I liked it, and I'm recommending it, even though I'm sounding like I'm trashing it. I'm recommending it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And lastly, you've come to us with this one, The True Story of Tamara de Lampicka and the Art of Survival.
Yeah, another documentary. Yay. I want to make folks aware of this movie before it officially opens because it's so good. I'm afraid it might get lost in the industry's release schedule. And that's this last movie. It's called The True Art of Tamara de Lampicka and the Art of Survival. And I didn't know the name of Tamara de Lampicka, but while I was watching the movie, I realized that I was, in my mind anyway, peripherally aware of some of her work. She was a painter in a kind of what's become known as the Art Deco style, and a woman who created these incredibly beautiful, arresting portraits, among other kinds of paintings. Anyway, this movie, written, directed, and narrated by Julie Rubio, is not only about Tamara de Lampicka's art, which is truly stunning and mesmerizing to just take in, and in and of itself, it's just, if the focus were just on her artworks, it would have been an amazing movie. But it's also about this woman's extraordinary life, which reads like this combination perilous adventure story / identity drama / colorful portrait of this incredibly bold and brave progressive artist and woman who spent the lion's share of her life in a kind of survival mode, hence the title, because of the time she was living in, like the Nazi takeover of Germany and the fact that she was a Jewish female bisexual artist and mother trying to eke out a living in, a man's world, what industry isn't, right? The art world in this case. It is a fascinating, compelling, enriching, also timely, soul-stirring work of art, this movie. It's infused with great affection and love. And I'm going to talk more about it in the weeks to come when it makes its debut at the Mill Valley Film Festival in October. But for now, I just wanted folks to remember the name, The True Story of Tamara de Lampicka and the Art of Survival. It's a must-see movie about this extraordinary woman. Even if you're not interested in art, you're going to find this just a compelling life story of this amazing lady artist and icon, and I can't recommend it enough. But anyway, it's gonna premiere at Mill Valley in October, but this is just a heads up, in case anybody's taking notes and putting things in their schedule. So, hello, I don't hear you. Oh, did we get cut off?
No, my problem is I'm having this, my microphone and my headphones are connected to the same thing. And so if I'm told that my mic is soft, then I turn it up and my headphones get too loud. And then there's an echo that's, anyway, technical problems, my bad.
No, it's funny. It's funny. I was kind of hearing like a slight background delay in my voice, but I was kind of ignoring it. So
yeah. Okay. Well, that works too.
Yeah.
We like that.
Yeah.
And then once I turn the mute button on, it's over. I forget to turn it back.
Oh, right. And I was just going to tell you, see, I was hearing that too, but I was so in love with the sound of my own voice.
Oh, wow.
that I was ignoring it. No. Anyway.
Right.
So anyway, yeah.
let's review.
Okay.
To recap, Beetlejuice, just like the first one, but it does have charm, and you backhandedly are recommending this one.
Right, yeah.
Fascinating. The Lover of Men, the untold story of Abraham Lincoln. You said this one is interesting enough to seek out, and you're recommending it.
Yeah.
Seeking Mavis Beacon. You said this one is also a yes. You said it's a deep dive into how women of color are marginalized, and it gives you a lot to think about regarding technology. You loved it for many reasons. You called this one terrific.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a rousing, good tone.
A rousing recommendation. Yeah.
Yes. The Front Room with Brandy. This was a mixed one. You said it gives you some cheap thrills in this horror movie.
Yeah. So bad it's good.
You said so bad it's good. You said the premise of the movie is suspect, but the ending is satisfying, and you're recommending it.
Yes, and if I could add, it's satisfying in a very perverse way.
Oh,
I remember just when I saw it, I go, I can't believe this movie is so, now it's become so satisfying. But the ending is really going to throw people. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good. And the last one, the true story of Tamara de Lampicka and the art of survival. You called it soul stirring, a must-see movie about this extraordinary woman coming to the Mill Valley Film Festival in October, and we'll be hearing more about this movie from you. The picture on that, the film poster is really cool. Look at the eyes on that woman.
It's really beautiful. You know, one of the other things that was interesting about the movie that I didn't know is, and I asked the filmmaker this, she actually was able to interface with Barbara Streisand, who is a collector of de Lampicka's art.
Wow.
And she helped her with certain aspects of the film, so she could just, get the word out about the fact that the film was being made. And it's so interesting about Barbara Streisand. I always thought she has always had impeccable taste, and she has this eye, and she's very forward thinking. She can kind of see things before a lot of people can see them. I think that's why a lot of men resent her, because she's sort of like on top of things in a way they're not. Anyway, I'm rambling on here, but
no.
Yeah, that was another fascinating thing about the movie. Apparently, Streisand is a collector of her art, and so is Jack Nicholson. He's a huge fan of hers.
Oh wow!
So yeah, cool. Interesting stuff.
I think maybe I've seen the art, but I've never heard the name.
Yeah, that was exactly me too. I know I've seen some of the art. They featured some of it in the background of certain movies. I think L.A. Confidential and a couple of other ones. But anyway, so really good movie. Really movie.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. You always bring the goods at the movies with Tim Sika. Another great one, Tim. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Kim. Thank you so much for letting me yak on about movies.
Are you kidding? I love it. Thank you for being here.
Well, you're welcome, and I will talk to you next week. You have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend, Tim. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
At the movies with Tim Sika.